My roommate and I each stare at each other in horror, for vastly different reasons. Neither of us has the courage to break the silence until eventually the burning agony of my question becomes too much to hold on to. "You know Fulvia?" I asked breathlessly. Gina takes a while to register my words, for her eyes to stop staring at me and actually focus on me. I don't blame her. I know what I am. What I don't expect is for her to dart a hand underneath her pillow, pull out a knife, and start backing towards the door. My eyes zero in on the knife without my input, and as time seems to slow I can feel them dilate. Threat. Food. Kill. My ears shoot upwards, pointing her way after one briefly swivels towards the door, double-checking for threats outside. Heart hammering, adrenaline pumping, memories of fighting and killing blade-wielding hunters playing vibrantly through my head. I carefully do not bare my teeth or move from my seat. There is no food here. There is no danger here. And if there is danger, let it take me without resistance. I refuse to move until Gina makes it all the way to the door, flipping the latch unlocked. Then and only then do I let myself act, since I need to place my helmet back on my head in case she opens the door. "You're dead," she hisses. "She said you were dead. If even half of what she told me is true, then I deserve worse than death," I finish for her, strapping my helmet back into place. "I know what I did. The words catch in my throat. I don't deserve to ask them. I don't deserve to know. I'm too weak to just shut up and hold my tongue, though. "Is she okay?" I whisper. From the midst of her panic, Gina manages to give me an incredulous look. "Is she okay? Is she okay?" She was on my team for a whole fucking year before she could actually talk about why she would wake up screaming in the night. We had to pretend it just didn't happen, since otherwise she might get kicked off the team. But after hearing why I sure didn't fucking blame her. "You sick shit." I flinch, nodding slightly. Well, it sounds like Fulvia is still alive, and at least doing well enough to continue being a hunter. That's good to hear. Gina, meanwhile, has managed to quickly stabilize her shaking and settle into a combat stance, her knife still pointed my way. If I had any food handy I would offer to let her stab me if that will make her feel better, but as is it would be too dangerous to let myself get injured. I might hurt her instinctively if I start bleeding enough. "Please put that away," I ask her. "I won't hurt you, and I can't let you hurt me." "Oh, fuck you," Gina hisses. "You act like you're so damn invincible. You've got no room to jump around in this tiny-ass dorm though, do you? A knife is pretty damn scary here, isn't it?" "Scary?" Gina is slow. Everyone here is slow. A single slash of claws to her knife-holding wrist and she has nothing. The door opens inwards, backed up against it like she won't be able to escape the teeth that follow. Even if she somehow stabs me, it won't matter. The knife will gouge my flesh, slick with black blood, and then the wound will vanish as my teeth tear into her body and soul. So sure, the knife is scary. But not because I'm afraid to get hurt. "Gina," I say evenly. "How many Vrithitso have you killed?" She snorts. "My team has taken out nearly 20 of you bastards," she sneers. "Okay," I continue, "and how many have you taken out? Alone? With nothing but a knife?" I stand up slowly. I'm hoping what Lady Vesuvius said is right, and all I will need to do is remind her what I am and she will back off. But I guess I underestimated Gina's courage, or maybe her stubbornness. She has been very annoying, and while I understand that I deserve this harsh treatment, if it is for the sake of getting her to put her weapon away I will try Penelope's suggestion. I don't have to, though. The moment I start to stand up Gina grabs the door handle, yanks the door open, and sprints out of our dorm like she's on fire. I take a deep breath, close and lock our room back up, and remove my helmet, remaining inside. Then I curl up on my bed and start to cry. I'm stupid. I'm so stupid. Why did I think this would be a good idea? Of course it's just going to make everything worse. Of course it's just going to make everyone hate me more. I deserve it, I know I deserve it, but it doesn't make the terror or the hate any easier to swallow. "I don't remember," the loud one whispers, its voice odd. "What? Fulvia?" The beautiful one turns its head to look at its companion. "What don't you remember?" "Their names." My meal moans. "I don't remember their names." "Whose names?" "Fulvia? Fulvia, listen to me. Look at me, please. I remember how I felt back then. Fulvia. No, the loud one in my memories, was barely better than any other annoying food. Favorable because she was flavorful. Nothing more, nothing less. I remember every scream, every cry, every single time she begged for the release of death. I didn't understand her words at the time, but I know I wouldn't have cared even if I had. Before my mistakes and the careful words of a wise man shoved how wretched I truly am into my face, that is all I was. And the worst part is that's not just in the past, it's not some other monster in my body who thought that way. It was me. Sometimes, in flashes, it's still me. Gina can be a frustrating bully, and in moments of weakness I find my thoughts tempted towards the emotionless self-interest that some doll I was before I knew August. It would be so easy to eat everyone here. If I just cast off the armor holding me back and let my teeth rip free, I could. Dang it. Just like that, I'm already thinking about it. Imagining it. Wishing for it. I squeeze the side of my bed, gauntlets straining against my grip. Why do I have to be this kind of monster? Why did I hatch as a little nightmare from the forest rather than as a real person? What does the Watcher want with me? Why does this trial have to be mine? The tears continue to flow, my body shaking as my mind is racked by memories. Blood, combat, joy, pain, injury, loss, friendship, betrayal, realization. My whole life plays itself back in front of me at rapid speed, taunting and tormenting me at each mistake. I have to get up, I have to move and distract myself from this or it will never stop. But I don't have the will. I can only spiral lower and lower, desperate for something, anything to grab onto and make it end. So for the first time in nearly 2 years, I start to sing. This is a lark's story. Content yet seeking more. The lark flies far for she loves naught but to explore. From islands high she sees so far, searching still for something new. But the lark can't fly above the sky, so down and down she flew. Over and over, I stab myself with Claretta's lullaby, a painful but comparatively tolerable memory. The words don't sound very good on my first verse, nor my second, but I remember exactly how they are supposed to sound and I never make the same mistake twice. I sing and I sing and I sing, letting the simple task of vocal mastery distract me from my tears, my regrets, and my mistakes. Then, when I finally believe I can manage it, I curl up with my arms clutched around my head and force myself into torpor. Before I know it, day has passed to night and back again. It's time for classes, and Gina still hasn't returned to the dorm. I hope she's okay, and I suppose the best way to find out is to go about my business. Strapping my helmet back on, I wander out to the courtyard for combat class. Under my breath, I find myself still humming the song. I'm first to the courtyard, as usual, but the others quickly learned the consequences of showing up late. Having to run a bunch more is apparently unpleasant for humans, which is one of those things I just had to ask. As such, it isn't long until Melik and Harvey show up, then right after them is Gina, Xavier, and Bentley. All three of whom are rather pointedly staring at me. No one speaks as all of us line up and stand at attention, waiting for the instructor to arrive. It's a bit of a tense situation, but after yesterday I am too worn down to be particularly affected by it. I suppose that's one advantage of being haunted by the past. Well, we've gotten the bullshit out of the way, the instructor barks as he walks onto the field, apparently deciding to waste no time before starting the lecture. I know how you idiots all fight. I know exactly what nonsense you need to unlearn. Which means we can finally begin the main purpose of this course, teaching you degenerates how to not embarrass yourselves with a sword. He paces back and forth in front of us as I frown to myself. Combat class has quickly become my least favorite over the past 10 days, and weapon practice is unlikely to endear it to me any more than it was before. Specifically, a one-handed blade and a fucking shield. Even you mistbrains have surely noticed by now that is the standard issue weaponry for the Templars. Why? Because while any idiot can pick up a spear and stab monsters with it, a sword takes effort. It takes practice. It takes skill. It is a symbol of superiority. And superior is what Templars are. That, and if you walk around town with a fucking 8-foot polearm all the time, you're going to have a damn bit of trouble getting through doors. Spears are a weapon for war, but you are as much peacekeepers as you are warmongers. When you draw your weapon you'll want it to be one that you actually have the room to use on a crowded street. He keeps talking, and I am fairly certain I pick up the gist of things. I've seen and fought people that use sword and shield, although most of them are slightly different from the Templar standard. Nora used a shield almost as large as she was when we fought, which made it relatively easy to get into her blind spot. That was a deceptively double-edged advantage, however, because it turned out to be less of a boon that I could blind her and more of an issue that I had to blind her if I wanted any hope of getting at her more vulnerable allies. Likewise, Alan used a two-handed sword instead of a sword and shield, but I understand what the instructor is talking about. Eventually, the instructor hands out practice blades and we spend the next 2 hours practicing drills, which is another one of those things that's helpful to humans but mostly a waste of time to me. After confirming with the instructor that I'm doing the drills correctly, it doesn't take much time before I can speed them up close to the limit of what I'm comfortable with, in either hand. Harvey and Gina seem to be fairly comfortable with the practice swords, but most of the others are still struggling to get the drills right at all, let alone get them up to my speed. I wonder if maybe the Watcher gave me a body and mind that learn quickly because he doesn't intend for me to be in this world very long. That would be nice. After class, I try to immediately move towards our next class but I'm intercepted by Xavier and Bentley. Which isn't really unexpected, I suppose. They have both removed their helmets, since for other people it's not required to wear the Templar armor outside of combat practice. Bentley seems confused, a bit hesitant. Xavier smells worried. Hey there, Lark, Xavier says, scratching the back of his head. So, funny story. Gina sort of insisted on sleeping in our room last night. Sorry about that, I answer blandly. That's my fault. Everyone else continues to the next class, Gina included, leaving the three of us in relative privacy. It's not your fault, Lark, Xavier insists. But is it okay if we ask what happened? Isn't it weird to claim it's not my fault if you don't know what happened? I mumble. Gina seemed really scared, Bentley murmurs. Is she okay? I suspect so, I say. Other than the fact that she's scared, I mean. And she's scared because? Xavier prompts. Because I decided to show her what was underneath my helmet, I explain. Xavier and Bentley share a look for a brief moment before turning back to me. You know, Lark. Xavier begins hesitantly. We're all Templar trainees here. We aren't. Well, Bentley and I certainly aren't going to judge you based on what you look like. And, forgive me if I'm being rude, but I've been picking up on some hints that you might not be totally human. Which is okay, Bentley promises. Really? I appreciate that, I answer, though I move to step past them both. But taking my helmet off last night proved to be a pretty big mistake. And I'm still not actually supposed to, so if you'll excuse me. Right. Sure, I get that, Xavier says, getting out of my way but immediately rushing up to walk in step beside me. I don't know, it's also just. We know Gina has been really hard on you. And Gina is nice, she's a really cool person, but if she's going to escalate her little rivalry thing with you by telling rumors that maybe aren't totally true, we want to, get your input on that. Because otherwise that's not fair. I stop walking. Gina told you what she saw? I ask. Well, yes, and I think she said she was going to tell the others too, but the thing she said was kind of, a bit crazy. And I mean, it's okay if it's true, I just, I frown. I guess that's it, then? For some reason I never really thought about the fact that she might go and tell everyone what I am. That's kind of frustrating. But it's also kind of relieving. The secret is out, now. Open and free, where it belongs. Surely I won't get in any more trouble than I'm already in for now, right? Slowly, part of me panicking but most of me just too done to care about the consequences, I start undoing the clasps on my helmet. I owe you an apology, Bentley, I say. I pretended I didn't know you back when we introduced ourselves. That was wrong of me. His eyes are already starting to go wide with recognition before I pull the helmet off, but once I do, shaking out my eternally puffy helmet hair, his jaw just about hits the floor. I also owe you an apology for biting out the back of your knee, I add hastily. And the claw wounds. Sorry. A continuation of Bentley's, and now Xavier's, intensely dumbfounded stares is my only response. I glance away, an invisible black blush blooming on my cheeks as I distract myself by stretching and flicking my sore ears. Why, you're a lot taller, Bentley eventually blurts. I blink in surprise. Yes? Wait, you two know each other? Xavier asks. We tried to kill each other a few times, I mutter. Thankfully, I never succeeded. So, you're really a Vrithitso, then? Xavier asks, awed. In lieu of a verbal response, I just flash a macabre grin at him, pulling my lips back as far as they'll go to reveal the full extent of my curved, black teeth. To my surprise, however, Xavier doesn't flinch away but instead leans towards me and lets out a low whistle. Wow, he says, seeming legitimately impressed. Them's some chompers. I have no idea how to respond to that. Gosh, I can't believe you're the same Lark. Bentley chuckles to himself, scratching his cheek. I feel kind of silly. We all thought Vita killed you. You are both weirdly calm about this, I say. Bentley, you saw what I did to people. You know what I am. I mean, you already told us on day one, Xavier answers dismissively. You joined the Templars to atone. So, good for you. Yeah, I mean, you're not eating anybody, Bentley agrees awkwardly. And I forgive you for eating me that one time. Really. I'm glad you're nice now. Thanks? Does Bentley taste good? Xavier stage whispers, sidling up next to me. I flinch, completely unprepared for that. What? I sputter. I mean, all humans taste good, I guess? Xavier mutters thoughtfully. That's kind of a weird answer. It was a very weird question. Xavier gestures vaguely. A simple yes or no would have sufficed. But it's cool. It's cool, you do you. The two of them actually enter the next class with me, acting like it's totally normal that a Vrithitso wearing Templar armor is walking between them. Which I'm really, really thankful for, because I think it might be what prevents our law teacher from drawing a weapon. Our law instructor is a retired Templar, and if I recall correctly, that's a perfect memory joke. Her retirement was about a year ago, meaning that there's a high chance she knows people that have been killed by Vrithitso. So I don't really blame her for giving me a mild death glare. Likewise, former soldier Harvey initially looks like he's about to prepare for a fight, but after a brief moment looking me over he seems to quickly calm down, returning to his default state of ignoring everyone. Gina stares with fear and incredulity, as she did last night, but Melik out of everyone gives me a gaze of the most open hatred. Honestly, it's nowhere near as bad as I feared. Nobody attacks or kicks me out. The teacher treats me with sharp professionalism despite her obvious dislike of me, and the classes are almost entirely boring because I've already read ahead. I even take my boots off halfway through class, although the instructor yells at me to quit distracting everyone after I start flexing my talons, to which I mutter an embarrassed apology. The boots are just not comfy. At all. I decide to carry them around along with my helmet rather than put them back on after class ends. Holy shit, that's so cool, Xavier says, bounding right up to me. Can you grab stuff with your feet? Language, I mumble. And probably? My thumb toes are opposable, but I imagine that would make it very difficult to walk. Are you okay, Lark? Bentley asks. I saw you were getting a lot of really mean looks. Oh yeah, it's okay, I assure him awkwardly. I'm used to it. What I'm not used to is getting fawned over. Even my friend Dune made a point not to talk very much about my inhuman features, and frankly I liked it that way. It's nice to not be hated, but having attention drawn to what I am makes me uncomfortable. The obvious solution is to put the armor back on, of course, but then I'd, have to deal with the armor again. So I'll try to enjoy this while I can. Trainee Lark, snaps a gruff voice. I turn and immediately stand to attention as I spot the Templar captain who barked at me. They are in full uniform, so I don't have the slightest idea who they are other than the fact that they don't smell familiar. Captain. I acknowledge. Your casual dress will be tolerated within the base, but under no circumstances are you to allow anyone outside the Templars to see you out of uniform. That includes any public areas of the base. Understood? Yes, Captain. Don't press this any further, trainee, the captain orders, then walks off. Huh? I really expected there to be more consequences than that. What you have been told to do and what you will be allowed to do are two different things. Lady Vesuvius was right, I mutter. Wait, You've talked to Penelope? Bentley asks excitedly. She was on my hunter team. I stare at him blankly for a couple seconds, trying to figure out if he's serious. I know, I eventually supply. I nearly murdered the woman, for crying out loud. He blinks, then scratches his cheek with embarrassment. Oh yeah, he says. Sorry, it's really easy to forget. You're just so different now. It's like you're a completely new person. I flinch, pressing my ears flat. Really? I ask quietly. Oh yeah, definitely. Bentley confirms, nodding jovially. Like before you were all nigh ha ha. I'm going to lead you into web traps and eat you. Humans are tasty. But now you're all shy and quiet and polite all the time. It's nice. You're not scary at all. I glance down at the floor, shaking slightly as I try to fight against the tears I feel welling up behind my eyes. I want to deny it, tell him no, I'm the same as I always was. I'm still that malevolent creature that enjoys the hunt and the taste of blood. I still feel that way, the need to eat and kill singing in my bones. The things I do to make me look like a person. It's nothing but an act. I need to tell him, to make sure he knows it so he won't ever let his guard down and get hurt. Thank you, is all I actually say. His words make me too happy to articulate anything else. Yeah, he answers cheerfully, all joy and goofy grins. I can't help it, I smile back. As wide as I can without opening my lips. The tears start to flow then, but I no longer care. Xavier gives Bentley a friendly punch in the shoulder, wiggling his eyebrows as the three of us continue on to our ethics class. The instructor gives me an odd look as we enter, but he seems more surprised than anything. Melik and Gina break off from a hushed conversation to glower at me. You boys better not be making anyone cry, the ethics instructor chides. No. I managed to choke out. No, it's good. He watches me carefully as we all head to our seats, eventually giving me a curt nod and starting the lecture as normal. At our magic lesson, the instructor takes almost too keen an interest in me, like a mix of all my least favorite parts of Lady Vesuvius and Xavier's attention, but it's mostly ignorable as I spend the entirety of the class trying and failing to learn to channel. I passed the cancel command test a few days ago, but I've been stonewalled at the supposedly easy step. Which is okay, I suppose. I'm sure I'll figure it out eventually. It's a very short day today, so it's dark by the time classes are over. It's not really a big deal, though. The entire barracks is lit with temporary chinemancy inscriptions, casting an eerily pale light over everything that's more than enough to see by. Although, I suppose for all I know it's dark to humans, I would be able to see just fine without any lights at all. I meander a bit before returning to my room, following Bentley and Xavier as they chatter with each other. I'm not really part of the conversation, but it's still nice to be there, to feel like I'm with them without being unwanted. Eventually, however, I have to break away to retrieve my package of mice and gulp them down in the bathroom. Afterwards I return to my room, intending to torpor until classes start tomorrow. To my surprise, however, when I open the door I feel that same magical tingle I did at Galdra's front door. Not as powerful, but certainly dangerous. My pulse rises, my quills twitch, my spinnerets flex. Someone has laid a trap for me. Or for Gina, I suppose, but that seems less likely. I should still make sure she doesn't walk into it, though, so I opt to stand and wait outside the doorway until someone walks by. It's possible that Gina will refuse to return to our room today as well, but if I don't see anyone for an hour I suppose I'll just curl up and torpor outside the room. Thankfully, it's only 10 minutes before Gina pokes her head around the far end of the hallway and scowls at me. Alright, I give up. What the fuck are you doing? Hello, Gina, I greet her. I think there's a magic trap here, so I wanted to make sure you didn't run into it. She stares at me for a while. I stare back. You set the trap, didn't you? I eventually ask. Fuck you, Lark. Gina snaps. Fight me. I don't want to hurt you, I answer flatly. Even if she is making an incredibly strong case for it. Well, we want to hurt you, a male voice insists. It's Melik. He steps into the hall as well, glowering furiously at me. I have had more than enough monsters pretending to be people in my life, he snarls. Your face looks very human, after all. And Vrathitso look like whatever things they managed to eat alive. You do not deserve to be here. I shrug lightly. I agree with him, but it's not my call. The gesture only seems to make him narrow his eyes further, though. I'm not going to fight, I say simply. I don't want to hurt any of you. You should, though, says yet another new voice, this time from behind me. Harvey walks into the hall from behind me, and now I am suddenly surrounded. I don't know much about Harvey, as he seems content to make himself mostly forgettable. The quiet older man was apparently a tactical officer before joining the Templars, whatever that means. He doesn't seem aggressive, at least, but I'm not really sure what he's talking about. I should want to hurt them? I ask him incredulously. No, of course not, he grunts back. You should fight. You really think you'll never be expected to fight someone as a Templar? That's half our job. If you keep half-assing the combat classes, you won't pass. What the fuck are you doing here, Harvey? Gina snaps. You said you didn't want to be involved. I don't, he answers flatly. But unfortunately it's an adult's job to oversee squabbles between children. Fuck you. If you want to stop us, then, no, feel free to kick each other's asses, Harvey grunts. Just do it in the courtyard, not the hallway. If you stay here you'll break a lot more than each other. He starts walking in that direction, and I start to follow without really thinking about it. What I am thinking about are his words. Fighting is half a Templar's job. It won't just be against monsters. It will be against criminals, soldiers, and, if I'm to get any meaningful practice in, each other. Don't worry too much, Harvey mutters quietly to me. They're both angry, but neither of them are dumb enough to actually try to kill you. And if they are, I'll stop them before it goes too far. I shrug. That's not really something I'm worried about, I answer. He smirks, just the slightest bit. Then I'll stop you. I size him up, taking in the scent of his strength. He's pretty tough, I guess. A lot stronger than most people, anyway, but there's also only one of him. If I lose control and actually try to kill him, I doubt it would be that difficult. The sentiment is appreciated, I say non-committally. Unlike the rest of the barracks, the courtyard is mostly dark. Malik and Gina follow behind me as I walk out towards the center of it, trying to decide what to do. We stop 20 feet apart from each other, give or take. Gina has a sword at her hip, and not one of the practice swords we were using earlier today. A real chitin blade. Malik, on the other hand, just pulls out a small container and opens the lid. To my surprise, some kind of shiny, reflective powder floats out of it and starts moving around him in the arcane patterns. Whenever the strange dust clumps together in a certain way, I feel the telltale tingle of another trap buzzing into existence somewhere behind me in the courtyard. That's so interesting. I've never seen anyone cast spells like that. So, how are we doing this? I ask. If you're both really this set on sparring. It's not a spar, Malik sneers. We are fighting a monster. Nothing else. I tilt my head. Hunters versus monsters all over again, huh? Sure, I say. I'll take the first turn playing as the monster. It's not a fucking game, you. Uck. Forget it. Hey, Gina? I ask slowly as Malik continues to set up more traps on the battlefield. I was wondering. Are you going to tell Fulvia that I'm alive? She flinches, looking away. I haven't decided, she grunts. It'll hurt her to know. But she deserves to know. Yeah, I agree. Sorry to put you in that position. Gina gives me a calculating look, apparently not quite sure what to make of that. Let's just make it a moot point, Malik mutters. I don't really understand why you're here, I admit to Malik. Do you want to beat me up? To kill me? Do I need a reason to hate Vrathitso? He counters. Well, no, I admit. I also hate Vrathitso. I've killed nearly 200 of them, and every few days I visit First Lady Vesuvius and let her cut me up so she can learn how to kill us better. And I do it because we're all terrible, and we deserve to die. Fuck you, Malik snaps. You think I'll buy that, you piece of shit? If you really believed that, then you'd be dead. I guess that's fair, I allow. Unfortunately, I'm also a coward. I've never actually succeeded at committing suicide. Everyone seems to bristle at that, as if I said something deeply shocking. For some reason, I find that funny. Wait, this is a surprise to you? I laugh. Really? Weren't you all born with empathy? Yes, I'm a monster. You don't have to remind me. I robbed every shred of humanity I have with my teeth, and now I am just expected to live with it. I dropped my helmet and boots as I ran, peeling off my gloves. They want a monster? I'll show them one. Soon I'm gratefully flexing my black-clawed hands, removing my torso armor, and rolling my sore extra shoulders. My quills extend up through the already shredded padded shirt I wear underneath the plate, and letting me reveal the full extent of what I really am to my former prey. I didn't ask to be chucked off of Hive Rock. I didn't ask to hatch, or to get tossed into a cannibalistic free-for-all seconds after. I never asked to run into hunters, or to be smart enough to keep them alive. I never asked to learn what love is after it was already too late. I would gladly let you kill me if any of you had a chance of actually succeeding. But no, if I just sit back and let you flail around at me, it's more likely you'll only deal enough damage to make my body decide it has to bite back. Oh, is that it? Gina sneers. It's our fault if you happen to take a little nibble. No, I snap. It's my fault. My responsibility. But I don't know the right thing to do here. So if you really want to fight, if you really want to press this, then the best I can manage is to take Lady Vesuvius' advice on the matter. Well, we're fucking fighting, Lark, Gina insists, her body tensing to move. So what was her advice? I lean over, crouching low, the claws of my talons digging deep into the hard-packed dirt of the courtyard. Established dominance, I quote. Exploding forward, I keep my body tucked in low as I leap towards them faster than the air can chase me. Multiple magical traps are in my way and I simply let them activate, passing over them so fast that most of them miss me entirely. The ones that do hit me singe my talons and ankles, raw mana tearing into them and burning me from the inside. None of it stops me. Gina swings her blade towards me, timing the strike to connect just as I get in range, but with one hand I bat the blade out of the way, snapping it in half immediately. The edge sinks into my fingers, carving a deep gash into my hand but failing to cut bone. With two other arms I strike at Gina and Melik simultaneously, as they had the poor sense to stand close enough to each other to allow it. I dig my talons back into the earth, gouging huge tracks into the ground to slow myself down before impact. With my fingers, carefully, so I don't claw them, I place a hand on each of their chests, cushioning the blow with my arms rather than adding force to it. Still, I feel ribs crunch, and by the end of my movement I've sent them both sprawling across the courtyard, each crashing hard on the ground before rolling to a stop. The crack of furious wind then catches up, shaking the whole barracks as it thunders past. Gina and Melik are sprayed with stones as I skid to a stop, my toes burning. Behind me, the ground where I started my leap is utterly shredded, a wave of dirt having slammed into the building behind me. The whole pell-mell certainly brings people running, and if not for the fact that I still had my tassets and greaves on I probably would have been assumed to be a wild Vrithitso and cut down. Suffice to say, my superiors are furious with me. With Harvey insisting that he isn't the one who caused the Kinamansi explosion, I start getting earful after earful. It goes on for over an hour. Don't fight outside of class, don't break bones, don't cause property damage, you should know better, we were promised you had more self-control. It mostly washes over me. I just spend the whole time clutching my bandaged fingers and ignoring that little voice in my head that reminds me I'm still bleeding, so I should kill them all. Humans are fragile, after all. Without Galdra to stop me, I could do it. I am both confused and frustrated by the sheer number of people that decided to follow me out of the prison. I feel like I was pretty unambiguous with both the fact that I intended to be a complete dictator to anyone that stuck around, and that everyone is welcome to just leave. At the very least I was expecting the former prison staff to take me up on that, as well as most of the prisoners. Turns out this is not the case. The entire cooking and cleaning staff is following me. I guess now that I think about it, it does make sense for most people to want to stick together when we are this far away from the city. The forest is dangerous, and all that. At least for other people. I take a deep breath of fresh air, because not even feeling the movement of my disgusting wet flesh sack can put a damper on the smell of freedom. Thanks for coming to break me out, you two, I tell Matteo and Netta. The three of us are currently patrolling the forest, mainly because the huge group on the road has been getting a little stuffy for me. It's uncomfortable to suddenly go from living in a cell alone for 2 years to being constantly feeling the rapt attention of dozens of people. I don't like it. Of course, Vita, Netta says, nodding what remains of her head at me. It's mostly skull now, with skin only from the chin down. There's no way we'd let you rot there, Matteo hisses playfully, coiling quickly around me once before darting away. We owe you our lives, after all, Netta agrees. That and we love you, Matteo adds. We are so happy to have you back. Matteo's body, being mostly chitin, seems to be faring a lot better after 2 years of undeath. He has a lot more unhealed battle damage, though, holes and cracks, a missing mouth finger or two. I'm kind of surprised Penelope still hasn't worked out a solution to that whole mind control thing, I admit. Netta and Matteo share a worried glance that I don't quite understand, but I decide not to press the matter. It's just nice having revenants around again. And dregs, for that matter. I have a fun little collection of zombies around me, and it feels great. Unfortunately, I've just about scared off everything else in this part of the forest, so it's time for us to return to herding cats on the road. Speaking of Penelope, Netta says, I suspect it'll be difficult to sneak you into the city, but we have a secret spot in the forest that we meet up at pretty regularly. I suspect that's where she'll check for you. I guess that works, yeah, I allow, shrugging. I was hoping to just sneak back into Skyhope, but there's no way I can do that with dozens of people following me. It might also be difficult because you have 3 eyes and a tentacle, Matteo points out. 4 eyes and counting, actually, I grunt. There's one on my thigh, and I think I feel another growing just above my hip. A thigh eye doesn't sound very useful, Netta comments. It's really not. So are you like, always? It has an eyelid, thankfully, I reassure her. Oh. Good. The 3 of us make it back to the road, where Eltrix, Lynn, and Jeremiah are keeping the peace among our captured Templars. Though it's mostly Eltrix. Apparently her talent just lets her look at people and make them balloon into a horrible flesh blob, which is just incredibly disgusting. I saw her use it on a bird, and I can't imagine how freaky it would be on a person. Apparently she can use the exact same talent to heal people, but I don't know if I'm super keen on letting her try. Welcome back, work of art, whichever Eltrix is currently in charge says to me. Can you just call me Vita? I ask her. It would be my pleasure, Vita, she agrees. Welcome back, kiddo. Lynn says, scooping me up in a brief hug. Can you also just call me Vita? Come on, kiddo, I have 2 whole years of taunting to catch up on. Well, in that case I hope you've been taking care of Vitamin, Grandma, I counter. Arg, oof. Such a cruel daughter I have. Woe is me. Lynn whines. But yeah, actually, she's been doing really well. She's with our benefactor. I nod, having assumed as much. Penelope no doubt figured out whatever animancy nonsense is necessary to feed my revenants, because she's smart and cool. And since Lynn is being careful not to say her name where anyone can hear, I assume she's currently in good standing over at Skyhope and hoping to stay that way, which is interesting. Also interesting are Jeremiah and Yelisaveta, who are talking with each other. By the way they awkwardly and suddenly stop their conversation as I approach, I assume it was about me. Plotting with other animancers already, eh Jelly? I ask, smirking at her. We'll make a heretic out of you yet. That's not, Jelisa starts, but then cuts herself off and sighs. Hello, Vita. I'd prefer if you didn't make a game out of taunting me on top of everything else. It's hardly heresy to have a polite conversation with someone who disagrees with what we believe. You should know that. Your co-workers certainly fooled me, I respond dryly. You should know that. How are the sleds, Jeremiah? Functional enough, he answers, nodding politely. I find myself rather humbled, to be honest. You craft undead as quickly and easily as you breathe, and the articulation of motion is almost lifelike. I don't know why I bothered making my own. A menagerie of undead creatures carry our supplies down the road, which is of course exactly as conspicuous as it sounds. These roads are not very well traveled, however, and my sensory range drastically outstrips how far anyone here can see. We've only encountered one other group of travelers, and it wasn't difficult to get everyone off the road and hidden before they got close. Well, you had to learn all this the hard way, I reassure him. I'm just kind of like this. It's not a bad sort of humbling, Jeremiah dismisses. It was silly of me to consider myself skilled. I clearly have a long way to go. And speaking of a long way to go, is it true that our goal is Skyhope? Jaleesa asks. No, it isn't, I inform her with the confidence of a person who didn't just decide that a couple minutes ago. Just somewhere nearby. Jaleesa hums. Have you decided what you're going to do with the people you captured? No, I admit. You and Lynn were right, though. Torturing them back. It's not productive. I'm torn between just letting them go when we get somewhere safe, or killing them and getting it over with. I'm obviously going to encourage you to release them, Jaleesa says. Obviously, I snort. But why should I? It's the right thing to do, Jaleesa answers simply. According to who? I ask. It's nice, sure. And I respect that. I respect you because you show kindness and decency when no one else does. But are the other Templars ever going to respect me? Are they going to forgive me and leave me alone if I show them mercy? Or will every one of them I release just turn around and immediately try to stab me? Jaleesa chews her lip. If you only show kindness when it benefits you, is it really kindness at all? She asks. If I show kindness even when it will bite me in the ass, how long will it be until it kills me? I counter. Is it really hypocritical to only show kindness to people that won't abuse it? Shit, Vita, you're a lot more a lot more wordy than I remember, Lynn mentions. Well, the thing about being imprisoned by Templars is that you end up listening to a lot of lectures on morality, I grunt. And they're all pretty much the same. I have practice. I think the essence of goodness is being willing to let yourself be hurt for the sake of what's right, Jaleesa continues, ignoring the aside. Because to me, doing the right thing is more important than personal gain. Well, that's well and good for you, I grumble. But I don't think you understand how much easier that is for you. My whole life I have been living meal to meal, if you can even call it living. I've been a homeless orphan for longer than I can remember, Jaleesa. I can't give away bread to people less fortunate than me when people less fortunate than me don't fucking exist. But you're not like that anymore, Vita, Jaleesa insists. You're the most powerful person here. Sure I am, until the High Templars come after me again for no reason other than having been born weird, I snap. You don't get it because you've never suffered the consequences of being hated. When you do the right thing, you get applauded. But when I went out to do the right thing I got fucking arrested. You see the difference here? You're not better than me because you're nice, Jaleesa. You're nice because your life is better than mine. You can afford it because you get rewarded for it. But I don't, I never have, and at this point it's really fucking difficult to think of reasons why I should bother to keep trying. It's not about the reward, Jaleesa says quietly. Oh yeah? I challenge. Well, how about you spend 18 years repeatedly getting your ass kicked for every nice thing you do and see if that changes your mind? As far as I'm concerned, your entire organization should be scoured from the island. I'm tempted to do it myself, but I'd prefer it if you just finally fucking left me alone. I glower at her a bit as she looks away awkwardly, worry and doubt in her soul. You don't think that's very likely, do you? I realize. You think they're just going to keep coming for me. Most likely, she admits. I'd figured as much, but it still sucks to hear. If you let us go, I can try to convince them to leave you alone, Jaleesa says. I mean, you'd have to make a few promises, probably, but I'm done fucking around, I tell her bluntly. If your people come at me again, it's war. And speaking of coming at me, it's then that I sense a very powerful and very familiar soul enter the tip of my range, High Templar Cassia the Maelstrom. It's hard to forget this bitch because she was the one who captured me and took me to jail in the first place. She knocked me unconscious by putting a fucking vacuum around my head, and that's an experience that puts her near the top of the people I never want to meet again list. Now that I have the time to appreciate it, though, I do have to admit she has a beautiful soul. Like all High Templars, her soul is fucking huge, extending well beyond the bounds of her physical flesh. She's a violent, spherical swirl of soothing experiences, something powerful and dangerous, yet crafted from beauty and grace. She is the smell of a thunderstorm, the awe of a gorgeous vista, the feeling of a cloud passing between your fingers, all roaring together in a furious vortex of death. And that's not the only soul I feel with her. A High Templar I don't recognize is carried along with her by her power, and though I've never felt it before, I suspect I can put a name to the soul. It feels like a massive glass sphere, the center of which glows with that warm radiance I love so much in Lynn and Jaleesa's souls. But between that glow and the edge of the glass flash countless reflections, each warped by the sphere. Images of landscapes flying by, bulbous and warped, feel less like a natural part of the soul and more like information it is constantly pulling inside, actual reflections of views that the talent is constantly streaming into the mind of its wielder. This, I suspect, is the soul of Braum the Ubiquitous. If I were to take a guess at the true nature of his talent, then, I think he's similar to me in that he gets constant information about everything around him in a wide area. Unlike me, that information is audio-visual rather than some kind of special sense. He just sees and hears everything in a huge range around him. And then he can cast his illusions anywhere he can see. Notably, though, his range is no longer bigger than mine. I feel no indication that he has spotted us, and that means we aren't fucked yet. Damn, my sensory range is probably measurable in miles now. Everyone into the forest, I order. Now. This way. Immediately I am assaulted with feelings of panic and confusion, but I refuse to elaborate and just keep yelling at people until they obey. This is my favorite part of being in charge. We cut a path perpendicular from the road, heading deeper and deeper into the forest as fast as possible as I try to rack my brain about how to survive fighting Cassia and Braum again. I'm a lot stronger than I was, sure, but there's still very little I can do about someone forming a vacuum around my face. Maybe I can stop Cassia from using that spell with how much more mana I can draw out from myself at once, but maybe I can't, so that's not really a plan. Ideally we'll move fast enough to avoid Braum's attention, but I don't actually have any idea what his range is compared to mine beyond the fact that it's more than 1,000 yards. He could spot us in seconds or he could spot us in an hour. I really have no clue. But even if we end up well outside his range, the fact that several dozen people just trudged off the road with sleds and entered the forest is going to be difficult to miss. Will they ignore us and just continue towards Site 4, or will they turn to investigate? Plans start forming in my mind, but as usual all of the best ones are far from kind. If we leave the staff behind and bring the supplies, the High Templars will have to choose between leaving them to die in the forest and continuing to chase us. That will definitely slow them down at the very least. Likewise, I can use the Templar prisoners as hostages to get the High Templars to back down. I could also maybe lie to them and claim that ours hasn't already escaped, as he might be scary enough to be a bigger priority than I am. I don't really like these plans, though. Fucking over the serving staff would be a dick move to people that abjectly don't deserve it. They followed me because they believed I could and would protect them, and I don't want to betray that unless I absolutely have to. And a plan that probably won't even work is far from an absolutely have to. I have significantly fewer compunctions about using Templars as hostages, because fuck Templars, but my main issue with that plan is that I don't think it will work. There's a good chance they will be willing to sacrifice those Templars in order to recapture me, considering that's literally protocol according to Zombie Manus. It's also guaranteed to piss the Templars off, which is detrimental to my long-term goal of getting left the fuck alone. As for ours, I'm not terrible at lying, but even if the lie works I don't know if that guy is such a big deal that they literally won't even take 5 minutes to smack me around first. Which leaves me the problem of dealing with a fight again. I'm not super worried about Braum, he's dangerous, sure, but I can just pop his illusions. It's Cassia that I have no idea what to do about. 2 years ago she opened the fight by hitting me with a wind projectile from over 1,000 yards away, and I seriously doubt her skills have faded since then. There's basically nothing I can do to someone that fights from that distance. I could maybe fill a soul with mana and throw it at her, but it took me 5 Templar-sized souls bursting with my essence to create a null magic zone covering a 60-foot drop. I can't even get close to making her fall over 1,000 yards. My only hope is for her to underestimate me and willingly put herself in range, and that's not even kind of a strategy. Hey, this is quite a pace we're setting, Vita, Lynn says with a bit of false cheerfulness. I'm not sure how long the non-combatants can keep this up. I acknowledge. What you thinking about, kiddo? You wouldn't happen to have any ideas on how to kill Cassia the Maelstrom, would you? I could target her with my talent fairly easily, but I doubt I will be able to affect her, Altrix reports, and then I remember I have a bunch of other people here that also hate Templars. Alright, you have any ideas, Jeremiah? I ask. Undead avians would be a minor distraction at best, Jeremiah says. Anything physical she's going to be able to bat aside, so long-range anima attacks would probably be ideal. I know a few, but I doubt they will be able to do much to a High Templar. Huh? Well, prepare them anyway, I order. And let's see if you can teach them to me if we have time. Jeremiah pauses, giving me a considering look before nodding slightly. It would be my pleasure, he lies. I frown at him. What was that about? Let's see, he doesn't want to share what he knows and he doesn't particularly like me personally. However, he probably believes that if he denies my requests I will just kill him and then make him teach me anyway. It's not urgent, you don't have to if you don't feel like it, I tell him. Just don't lie to me again. He raises an eyebrow, and nods. What about you, to kill from above? Do you even know who Cassia the Maelstrom is? The bug man from Hiverrock has been following me around for reasons I suspect only he knows. He's not a very talkative guy, but I figure maybe somehow he knows a thing or two about people who kill from above. I am aware of the human known as Cassia the Maelstrom. I have been developing a combat plan for fighting this threat during the entirety of my stay in prison. Oh hey, that sounds promising. Okay, lay it on us, dude. I encourage. What's your murder plan? I do not have one. I am incapable of achieving victory in any standard combat scenario. Right, of course. I rub my temple eye in exasperation. Okay, who's next then? Jaleesa? Any ideas? You want me to give you advice on how to kill a High Templar? Jaleesa asks me incredulously. I mean, if you wouldn't mind. I mind. I scowl at her. Fine, be that way. Okay then, I guess we are starting operation. Hope really hard that they just don't notice us and fly past, I say. Do you think you can all handle that one? And somehow, this actually works. It's not long until Braum and Cassia reach the point where we veered off the road, and they definitely notice something is amiss. Yet they keep flying anyway, ignoring us and continuing towards Site 4. Huh, I muttered to myself. I actually got lucky for once. I suspect they seek the artist, Altrix informs me placidly. You may be dangerous and hated, but you are but the epilogue in the book of horror he wrote. From what he told me, he more or less made me by accident, I grumble. But I don't remember. I don't remember him, I don't remember you, I don't remember anything. 2/3 of Altrix's soul twitch in pain as I say that, so I nod apologetically at her. Sorry. I can tell you care about me, but the best I can do is let you stay with me and make new memories. Smashed mine, I guess. But honestly, your feelings on the matter are the biggest evidence to me that you and ours aren't lying. Capita believes it, you believe it, he believes it. I guess I have to face the facts and accept I'm some kind of weird baby Mistwatcher thing. I sigh, raising my arm so I can stare at my flesh tentacle as I idly flick and curl it without really thinking. It's just annoying, I continue, because I really don't like the Mistwatcher. The idea that I'll eventually mutate into some big tentacle flesh blob is not very appealing. I thought you liked your tentacles, Lynn says, in the same way a mother might be surprised that their child doesn't like their haircut. This is not a tentacle, I complain, pointing at the thing growing out of my elbow. It's a gross, superficially tentacle-shaped mockery of flesh. It doesn't move right, it doesn't feel right. It's awful. I've always been taught that tentacles are symbols of the divine, Jaleesa says solemnly. I snort. Then why aren't you kneeling? I quip, wiggling a physical and spiritual tentacle in front of her face. Because false use of a divine symbol is blasphemy, Jaleesa smirks. Hey, it's not my fault, I grumble. Apparently I was made this way by a former High Inquisitor. Templars have been the ones fucking me from the start. Her face falls, and I decide I'm done talking for now. It's still a long way to our destination, and I should collect as many undead as possible so that none of the living get hurt. The rest of the trip is almost entirely uneventful. Over the next couple days we trudge through dense forest, following Netta and Mateo's directions as I slowly gather an army of a few hundred dregs and risen. I just lose myself in the collection process, trying to ignore the unwelcome temptation to let my consciousness leave my body and slip within my soul. For obvious reasons I can't do that, and that knowledge makes some horrible part of me long to still be in a prison cell. It's like I'm addicted to not being myself. Eventually, Netta and Mateo declare that we are close enough and request that I make a temporary camp for everyone before they lead me to the place where they meet Penelope. I guess they have been instructed to keep it secret from everyone else, which is perfectly understandable. With Aldrich, Manus, and a literal army of undead there to keep the peace, I'm not super worried about leaving everyone else alone. They take Lynn and I to a small clearing a few hours away, and then just sit down. So, how does this work? I ask. We wait, Netta grunts. For how long? Sometimes days, Matteo hisses. Your girlfriend is not well known for being predictable. Then what? I press. She just appears? Yep, Netta confirms. Oh. I was kidding, but all right. I sit down as well, waiting for who knows how long to see one of the few people I love for the first time in years. It's very boring. Wanna prank her? Lynn asks. It's 3 hours later when I suddenly feel a powerful mana signature in the center of the clearing. I hunch down deeper into the bushes, hiding in wait of my prey. Then, suddenly, she's here, and it takes every ounce of my self-control to remain still. She's here. That soul of beautiful pink bubbles, pulsing and alive, hidden partly under an artificial shell. Her soul is bigger since last I saw it, but the shell is smaller and she's ever more beautiful because of it. Penelope has always had a sense for combining practicality and style, but her clothes now lean more towards the former. Heavy, padded clothing armors her body, teasing at her curves with its tight fit. Her hair is braided all the way down past her waist, elegantly woven in a pattern I could never even imagine learning. Her soul stirs as she looks around, and I feel mana rapidly shaping itself inside her despite her motionless hands. Lynn steps out in front of her, and Penelope's focus snaps on the woman immediately. Lynn, Penelope says curtly, her soul singing stress and impatience. What happened? Sorry, Lady Vesuvius, my mother mutters. We got really damn close, but we couldn't break her out. They've still got her. An aching fury flows through Penelope and is swiftly murdered, replaced by cold calculation. I feel her take in the world around her, analyze information, and start forming a plan, all while efficiently coming to a swift conclusion about the current conversation. You're lying, Penelope says, blunt irritation pouring out of her voice. There's a pause, and then her eyes widen as she catches up to her own thoughts. You're lying, she repeats excitedly. And that is the moment I burst out of the bushes and scoop her up into a hug. Her eyes lock onto mine immediately. Holy shit, they're golden now, and she squeals with delight as I spin her around, laughing with the sheer jubilance of finally being able to see her again. I'm free. I'm free. Even with the whole world against me, she found me and set me free. Vita, Penelope breathes, cupping her hands around my cheeks as if I might spill through them like water. Penelope, I respond, reaching out with a tentacle, a real tentacle, and feeling an overwhelming surge of joy and relief when it makes contact. Next thing I know, I've wrapped us both up entirely, hundreds of tendrils exploding out of my core and squeezing us together in a cocoon. I made it. I actually made it. I made it home.